1885年，斯坦福夫妇以爱之名为早逝的幼子播下一所大学的种子。1951年，特曼院长用一份温暖的远见，以$1租约，将1000英亩校园化作全球首个高校孵化器。斯坦福从不用围墙定义边界，却用校友基金和专利办公室织就一张充满温度的创新网络。从旧金山的首家风投到红杉 KPCB， 从学生们的草图到改变生活的全球产业，谷歌、英伟达、思科循此而生。如今，沙丘路的风投与校园的智慧依旧默契同行，2000余家独角兽汇聚成创新漩涡。斯坦福的草坪上，理想与资本仍在温柔对话。这里没有惊天动地的宣言，却用大学、风投、产业的自循环，让颠覆式创新一次次重写世界。今天，我将对话斯坦福大学管理科学与工程系副教授、斯坦福大学技术创业中心教务主任、独立投资人Chuck Eesley， 听他讲述斯坦福与硅谷如何相互成就传奇。
The university and Silicon Valley have really grown up together. The key role that Stanford plays is really as a magnet for talent. One other role that Stanford plays in Silicon Valley is, of course, in developing new technologies. So the faculty at the leading edge of their fields are developing new technologies in the lab. The students are getting exposed to those technologies, and then many are going on to start companies. So that's from Stanford to Silicon Valley. In return, as part of this virtuous cycle, so the venture capital influence in Silicon Valley is as a unique financial investor that is willing to take on such high levels of risk. And that has a long time frame, to truly develop a great company based on technology. You have to be willing to wait perhaps up to 8-10 years or longer for the product to be developed, for it to be accepted in the market. So the tolerance for failure, the acceptance of risk is one, and the willingness to see a previous failure as a learning experience and something that is to be celebrated and not as something to be shunned or to shy away from is really unique in the culture.
What kind of interaction model has been developed between Stanford University and Silicon Valley? And how does this model drive the technological innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem prosperity? What key roles does Stanford play in it?
So that's really a virtuous cycle that exists between Stanford and Silicon Valley. It's developed over many years. The university and Silicon Valley have really grown up together. The key role that Stanford plays is really as a magnet for talent. So we're bringing the top students to Stanford University. They then often decide to stay in the Bay Area and work in the many tech companies or start their own companies in the Bay Area. And one other role that Stanford plays in Silicon Valley is, of course, in developing new technologies. So the faculty at the leading edge of their fields are developing new technologies in the lab. The students are getting exposed to those technologies, and then many are going on to start companies. So that's from Stanford to Silicon Valley. In return, as part of this virtuous cycle, Stanford also gets a lot of benefits back from Silicon Valley. So Google is a great case study in this. It was initially a research project, of course, in the computer science department. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founders of Google, were PhD students. The initial URL for Google was actually google.stanford.edu. And then the university licensed that technology, the PageRank algorithm, back to Google after it was patented. As Google developed, now that it's a successful tech company in Silicon Valley, the university receives a lot of benefits back from Google for that little bit of help in getting started in the beginning. And we, of course, sometimes receive donations back from alumni. So the continuing the Google example, the PageRank algorithm, the university received a lot of royalties over the years. Other successful founders, Jensen Huang at NVIDIA, for instance, or the founders of Yahoo, Jerry Yang, have made donations back to the university. And so those funds then get recycled into training the next generation of students, generating the next technology breakthroughs. And so in this way, there's a virtuous cycle that has existed between Stanford and Silicon Valley.
Well, then what distinctive courses and hands-on projects does Stanford University have in entrepreneurship education? How do these educational models assist students and entrepreneurs in adapting to the entrepreneurial environment in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so there are many entrepreneurship courses at Stanford. I think at one count, there were over 100. But I think probably the most famous is the lean startup or the customer development model that we have developed. Steve Blank and others have pioneered this model of entrepreneurship education. And so this is embedded throughout our coursework, but the most classic courses are Lean Launchpad, which Steve Blank teaches. So this is the customer development methodology of ensuring that there's truly a pain point, a problem, and a market need that the technology is solving. So this is embedded in many of the courses and teaches students how to commercialize a new technology. Getting to product market fit is often one of the key challenges. And so this is something that our entrepreneurship education initiatives really emphasize on. So programs like our Stanford Technology Ventures program, STVP, this is the Entrepreneurship Center that I'm one of the faculty directors for in the School of Engineering, manage these courses and give students the opportunity to work in teams, led by a mentor, working on a hands-on entrepreneurial project and getting firsthand experience and going through all the stages of an early entrepreneurial project.
Let's turn the conversation to Silicon Valley. What do you think are the key features of Silicon Valley's innovation culture? In the current global economic and technological environment, what fresh challenges and opportunities does Silicon Valley face?
Yeah, well, I think one of the key features that you've really got to highlight first in talking about the unique culture in Silicon Valley is the tolerance for failure. There are very few places around the globe that can tolerate failure at the levels that we have in Silicon Valley. This is just part of the nature of doing something new, inherent in innovation, and especially in pursuing the kinds of breakthrough innovations that Silicon Valley has developed around, is a high rate of failure. And so there's a level of risk that we tolerate in Silicon Valley and that the venture capital model in Silicon Valley allows for, that's really critical to enable engineers, entrepreneurs, to take a risk on trying something truly new and innovative. So the tolerance for failure, the acceptance of risk is one, and the willingness to see a previous failure as a learning experience and something that is to be celebrated and not as something to be shunned or to shy away from is really unique in the culture. And then there's also an openness in terms of sharing technological challenges and opportunities. Silicon Valley is famous for engineers getting together after work, trading ideas on the back of a napkin at the various bars and cafes around. And so I think a lot of people who come to Silicon Valley for the first time really notice this openness in the culture. Finally, in terms of the current challenges and opportunities, everyone's excited about AI, of course, and so there's a lot of both hype and I think real opportunity there. One of the other challenges, though, in the current environment is maintaining that openness, especially to immigrants, and whether Silicon Valley will catch the next wave of technological innovation, and whether we'll be able to continue welcoming the best and the brightest from around the world. These are key challenges and opportunities for us.
You speak very well indeed. And my last question is, the American TV drama Silicon Valley is highly impressive. In the ecosystem of Silicon Valley, as a crucial part, how do venture capital institutions affect the innovation atmosphere and enterprise development?
So venture capital is really critical in Silicon Valley. These are the only folks that I know of that have a business model, as I was mentioning before, that can tolerate such high levels of failure. The venture capital institution and business model can tolerate 9 out of 10 ventures failing. And that's because they're really looking for those few breakthroughs that are going to give a 10x or a 100x return, the Googles of the world, the NVIDIAs of the world. So it's really special and really unique because most large companies or most other investors investing in the public markets or in various other opportunities aren't able to take those levels of risk. It's a very high risk, high return business model. So the venture capital influence in Silicon Valley is as a unique financial investor that is willing to take on such high levels of risk. And that has a long time frame, to truly develop a great company based on technology. You have to be willing to wait perhaps up to 8-10 years or longer for the product to be developed, for it to be accepted in the market, and then eventually for there to be an exit in terms of IPO or acquisition. And so this is the unique thing that has developed in the Silicon Valley VC model. The other unique thing is that many of these VCs are willing to come into university classrooms, like my classroom, and share their hard-earned wisdom, their knowledge from being involved in many startups over the years with that next generation of young, aspiring entrepreneurs. Many places around the world, if you're successful as an entrepreneur, you might go off, you might retire on the beach, buy a boat, have a nice life somewhere. But in Silicon Valley, it's really unique in that those folks that are successful in their companies often turn to become venture capitalists as the next stage in their career or angel investors. And they're really looking to give back to the startup community, to invest in the next generation of entrepreneurs, to provide the mentorship, the networking, the development that young entrepreneurs really thrive on. And so I think those are the unique aspects of the venture capital institution in Silicon Valley.